Yes, you read that title correctly. There are Macs that need to be sold ASAP before it's too late, and there's a pretty good chance that if you currently own a Mac, it's probably on this list. And if so, you need to take into consideration what I'm about to talk about in this video. As we all know, Apple is currently going through the biggest Mac transition of all time, switching from Intel chips to their very own Apple Silicon chips, like they've already done with the M1 Macs. And based on current leaks and rumors, we're expecting most of the remaining Intel Mac models to get replaced with new Apple Silicon models by the end of this year. And when that happens, many Macs are gonna drastically drop in value. I'm talking hundreds or even over $1,000 loss in value over the next few months. Now I know some of you are gonna say that you can't sell your Mac and wait because it's your only computer, and yes, you have a great point, so I'm gonna give you the absolute best solution that will save you the most amount of cash during this transition. But before I get into that, I wanna mention that those who already have an M1 Mac are completely in the clear because these Macs will barely lose any of their value over the next few months, and here is why. First off, they were just updated with Apple Silicon chips, so they're less likely to lose value since there's a much longer period of time before these models get updated again. Second, they perform incredibly well, much better than anyone was expecting. And since they have the new chips, these M1 Macs will be supported and they'll run reliably for many, many years. And third, so many people are so happy with these M1 Macs that no one is willing to sell them, which ultimately helps the value stay higher since the supply of used models is lower, therefore raising the demand as well as the value. And that brings us to the simple solution that's gonna apply to each and every Intel-based Mac that I'm gonna mention in this video. You sell your Intel Mac right now and buy an M1 MacBook Air until the higher-end Apple Silicon Mac model that you're waiting for finally gets released. And then at that point, you can resell the M1 MacBook Air for a minimal loss compared to what you would have lost if you held on to your Intel Mac. The other benefit of this is that you can get a very nice and snappy Mac for the time being. Like for example, check out the web browsing speed difference between the M1 Mac Mini and our $15,000 Intel-based Mac Pro. And then check out these app loading times. Definitely snappy. And yes, if you already have a keyboard, mouse, and display on hand, the M1 Mac Mini is also a great choice if you prefer a desktop setup instead of the MacBook Air. And now let's get right into the list of Intel-based Macs that are gonna lose the most amount of value over the next year or so as this Apple Silicon transition finishes up. First on the list is of course the 2019 Mac Pro, since it's gonna lose the most amount of value dollar-wise because it's the most expensive Mac to begin with, especially the upgraded models like our $15,000 12-core Mac Pro. But there are a couple of things that put it in a really weird spot in terms of trying to sell it right now. First off, you most likely bought it because you needed something very specific, like either the very high performance or the incredibly high amount of RAM, or maybe even the afterburner card. So replacing it right now with the lower end M1 MacBook Air probably won't be possible if you need to do high-end work. And on top of that, the Mac Pro is almost surely gonna be the absolute last Mac to get updated with Apple Silicon, and that might not happen for another full year and a half in December of 2022, which is Apple's absolute deadline for the 2-year timeline that they gave us at last year's WWDC event. So if you currently own a 2019 Mac Pro, you basically have 3 different options. Number 1 is to hold on to it and take the huge loss in value when the new model finally comes out. Number 2 is to hold on to it until an Apple Silicon Mac comes out that's fast enough for your needs, like maybe the 30 to 32-inch iMac that's coming later this year. And number 3 is to sell it right now to salvage as much value as possible and then buy a 2020 27-inch iMac until the new Mac Pro is released, since that's the Mac that will hold its value the best out of any Intel-based Mac, like we discussed in our recent review of that machine. Now moving on to the second Mac that'll lose the most amount of value, we have the 16-inch MacBook Pro. The Apple Silicon version of the 16-inch has been rumored for many months now, and we're now pretty confident that it should be getting released sometime this fall, potentially in October or November, based on some supply chain leaks that show that volume production will begin in the second half of this year. And as soon as that model is released, the current Intel models will absolutely tank in value, especially if you have an expensive upgraded model like with an 8-core CPU, tons of RAM, or the insanely expensive 5600M graphics option. The new one is going to feature a brand new squared edge redesign with more ports like an SD card slot and maybe even an HDMI port. It's going to have a brand new mini LED display that people are going to be all over. It might get a 1080p webcam, and the M1X chip will have much faster raw CPU performance, and the raw graphics power will likely match or even beat the most expensive 5600M graphics. But on top of that, since the graphics is going to be integrated into a unified Apple Silicon chip, the real-world performance gains will be even better than the raw power gains. So based on all of that, you should probably be selling your 16-inch MacBook Pro ASAP and getting a temporary M1 Mac until the new one gets released. Now moving on to the third Mac that's going to lose the most amount of value, we have the iMac Pro. One of the main reasons is because it recently got discontinued. And while the Apple tech community already knows this, there are a lot of regular people out there who haven't heard the news yet. So as time goes on, it's going to lose more and more value. On top of that, it's already getting outperformed by Mac machines like the 2020 iMac. And we think there's a pretty good chance that even the smaller 24-inch Apple Silicon iMac with the M1X chip is going to outperform this iMac Pro, which sounds crazy. And as we're already expecting, the new iMac models will be getting a completely new design after over 8 years of sticking to the same design as this one. So that in itself is going to cause the iMac Pro's value to tank. And out of all of the upcoming Apple Silicon Macs, we think that the redesigned 24-inch iMac is coming first, potentially even later this month at Apple's April event. So you'd better consider selling your iMac Pro right now before the new design comes out and everybody loses interest in the old one. Moving on to the fourth Mac that's gonna lose a ton of value, we of course have the 21.5-inch Intel-based iMac. And it's for the exact same reason, the upcoming 24-inch model, which will destroy it in every single way. The new design, the much better display, the SSD as standard instead of a hard drive or a fusion drive, and of course, the performance will absolutely obliterate what the 21.5-inch iMac has to offer. So trust me, if you don't sell it right now, you're gonna have a very hard time selling it after the 24-inch iMac is released. Now getting into the fifth Mac, we have the 4 Thunderbolt port 13-inch MacBook Pro, which is currently still up for sale on Apple's website for $1,800. This MacBook is going to lose a ton of value for a couple of different reasons. The main reason is the fact that we've been expecting a 14-inch redesign for many months, and we're likely getting it alongside the 16-inch model in the fall. The mini LED display is going to be much better. The difference in performance is going to be drastic, even more so than with the 16-inch. It's going to get a completely new design with more ports, potentially a 1080p webcam, and since the new one is going to be a 14-inch, a lot of people are going to quickly lose interest in the old 13-inch. And the crazy thing is that the M1 Max are already outperforming this model by a huge margin. But since Apple is still selling it on their website because of the 4 ports, it's still got some value left to it. But that's quickly going to get erased when the new 14-inch is revealed, so sell it while you can. Now moving on to the 6th Mac, we have the Intel-based Mac Mini, which Apple is also continuing to sell on their website, causing it to hold its value a bit better than other Macs for the time being. But the M1 Mac Mini has already proven to destroy even a much more expensive Intel-based Mac Mini in basically every single way, especially in terms of graphics. And to make matters even worse, we're expecting Apple to release an M1X Mac Mini later this year, which will cause the value of the Intel models to tank. So I'd recommend getting an M1 model right now, and if you absolutely need the extra Thunderbolt ports or the extra display support, we made a video on how to fix this issue, which you should definitely check out. So that was the main list of Macs that'll lose the most amount of value during this transition, and if you have a Mac that wasn't on that list, you don't really need to worry about it that much, because chances are the current M1 Macs that were released in November have already tanked the value of your Mac so much that you can wait for the Apple Silicon Mac of your dreams to get released without worrying about your current Intel Mac losing a lot of extra value. But before I finish off this video, I want to add in a bonus product that you should consider selling right now, and that is an eGPU setup. If you currently have one of those, now is the perfect time to get rid of it, because we already know that Apple Silicon Macs will not support eGPUs, since Apple has already confirmed that AMD graphics cards will not be supported ever again. And we already have leaks and rumors that Apple is working on their own custom discrete graphics chips for their higher end Macs. So right now is the perfect time to sell eGPUs, especially since we're in the middle of a graphics card shortage, so you can sell them for a lot more right now while the demand is still high. So there you guys go. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and if it helped you out, consider using our Amazon links in the description below to find the best deals on these M1 Macs to help out this channel. Definitely click the circle above to subscribe for those new products coming up soon, and we will see you in the next video.